Hey everybody, welcome back. I had a bunch of interesting stuff show up this week, and I wasn't going to do a video on some of this stuff, but it measured so well. I had to say, check this stuff out, man, because we've had a lot of cruddy stuff come through over the last year, and stuff that measured all jacked up and crazy. And this time I'm getting some stuff in, and it all measures really well. And I got to give some props to some of these companies. I know we spoke about the SVS stuff last week. There's still the big towers over my shoulder here. I'm going to have to map it all out and design or really just replicate the crossover they had, because it measured really well. They have a good product. They just used, really budget level parts to meet the price points that they're trying to sell these things at. I know I picked on their marketing department a little last week because, man, the stuff they wrote was just too funny. But a good company, though. They have some good products, and I got some more in that were a little bit of a surprise. Some was a little bit of a surprise. One wasn't that much of a surprise. So we're going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk about this yet. This is a Dynaudio studio monitor. I know you guys are thinking, ooh, look at that Dynaudio. This was a powered speaker. It's one of their powered studio monitors, and we're going to convert this over to a passive monitor. And it's going to sound a lot better than it did. I know you guys are thinking, but doesn't active sound better? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's a lot more other things going on when you produce an active speaker at this price point. There's a lot of AC noise and a lot of noise within the electronics and things that hold this thing back and limit it. And we're going to put a passive filter on there so you can plug it into anything. Now you can listen to it on a high-end system, and you're not limited to an inexpensive budget amp that's hooked up to the thing. And the customer's so excited about it, he's going to build out the passive pair and then maybe bring them down, and we're going to have a little shootout. We'll hook them up in our listening room and hear how they compare. So that's coming. I just wanted to let you guys know it's pretty cool. Klipsch stuff again. I keep getting Klipsch stuff. There must be a ton of Klipsch stuff out there. This one, the little monitor was sent in. This is a kind of a neat little speaker. It's got a nice magnetic grill that holds it on. Nice looking little drivers. I know I'm not a big fan of the metal cones, but this one actually measured pretty well. And I think one of the reasons it measures pretty well, the tweeter in this model, and this one here too, is not as deep. It's not a long loaded horn. So the acoustic center is about even with the little woofer that's in there. So I'm not seeing a big time delay issue and a hole in the response like I see with some of the other Klipsch models. This one actually measured okay, and I want to talk about this one a little bit. This one is, make sure I get this right, is the R41M. Like I said, no holes in the response. The top end is tilted up a little bit. There's a little bit of a high area up there to give you that typical Klipsch brightness in your face sound. And there's one little peak at 1 kHz that did show a little stored energy. The grill, I tried it with and without the grill. Grill made very little effect, which was very good. It's tuned to 86 Hertz. We see that on the impedance sweep. And it did drop down to 3.4 ohms. So I'm not sure what they list this thing at, but it is definitely a 4 ohm speaker. Definitely dipped down to 3.4 ohms. Any of you guys running these, better keep in mind that it's going to be a little more demanding on the amplifier. The impedance is also a little misbalanced. The impedance on the tweeter end is higher. Instead of them putting a L pad in there to bring the levels down to match the levels and keep the impedance balanced, there's just an inline resistor. So it's just putting a resistor inline with it to raise that level up, or to keep the level from being too loud. The crossover is typical of what we've seen in some of these speakers. At least there's an air core inductor on the tweeter circuit. There's a little bitty electrolytic caps, little iron core inductors, a couple of sandcast resistors, the typical stuff that you would expect for a speaker that probably doesn't sell for anything. They have no budget to put anything into it. So that's what you get when you're shopping at those levels. And can I upgrade it? Well, I've been thinking about this one, and if I put real parts in this thing, And if I put something on here to attenuate this peak at 1 kHz, which would be a little notch filter, I don't think it'll fit in the box. So it's going to be really tough to get this thing in the box. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it. But the measurements weren't that bad. If we look at the horizontal off-axis, it actually looks much smoother as you get off-axis. You don't want this thing aimed right at your head because the tweeter's so hot. So you get it off-axis a little bit and it's smoothed out. And the vertical off-axis looked good. It looked really good. And that means as we move the microphone up, it's not changing the time alignment or the time delay any from the little tweeter to the little, I guess that's a little 3.5 inch, maybe 4 inch woofer. I guess really more about a 3.5 inch driver. But we're not changing the time delay too much as we're moving up because the acoustic centers are pretty close together. So vertically it maintained a pretty good response. If we looked at the spectral decay, we see right at 1 kHz, there's definitely a little resonance there. And there's a little bit of a humped up area there at the bottom that pops back up, kind of a late arrival. That may be indicative of just not enough insulation in the box. So that may be something that's reflecting around in the box and then re-exciting the woofer again. So I don't know if I'm going to do anything with this or not. It may just be that, you know, a speaker at this price point, is it worth spending $150 on some real parts to make it sound better? You could easily spend more than the speaker's worth. And when you're spending more on it than it's worth, you kind of have to scratch your head a little bit and think, I don't know, because sometimes those crossover parts for a little two-way can be pretty close to what they might be in any two-way speaker. So you've got levels of parts you can use. There's certainly budget level that are still good quality. That's not the cheesy stuff. And then there's a really high-end parts that you might want to put in a little more higher performance speaker. So there's some room there, but it's still just to put decent parts on a two-way speaker. Like I said, we're getting right up in there to the price point of the speaker. So I don't know, but I'm going to look at it. I'm going to look at it and see what I can figure out. Next, I want to talk about this little Klipsch speaker. This one was a little bit of a surprise. And I know these speakers look a little big because they're so close to the camera compared to me. They're not that big. But this one, again, because the tweeter is not too deep, it's not a long horn, so the acoustic centers are more in line with the woofers. This one measured pretty well. In fact, it's the best measuring Klipsch speaker that's been in here. If we look at the on-axis frequency response, pretty smooth all the way across. A little bit of a dipped area around 3 kHz, but not bad. That's only 2.5 dB down, so not bad. We're still staying within a dB and a half until you get past 10K. Above 10K it starts to drop off. But overall, not too bad at all. And as we go up vertically, because this is the center channel, we start moving up vertically. The vertical off-axis looks very consistent, looks good. The impedance does, like this one, drops to 3.4 ohms. So any guys using these in a theater system, keep in mind your receiver is going to be driving a little harder load. It's going to be it's going to have a little more current demand on it, and if you start ganging up a bunch of these on your receiver might not like it. So keep that in mind. Now here's something else. One of the reasons I want to talk about these things is the horizontal off-axis. By horizontal, of course, we're talking about how it measures when you're right in line with it, and then what happens as you seat off-axis. As you start moving off-axis, what happens? Well, if you look at the vertical off-axis, or the horizontal off-axis, you'll see it looks like a mess. I mean, it looks bad. It looks good on axis and it looks good 10 degrees off axis. You may be okay maybe to 15, but after that, it goes crazy. What happens is, as you get further off axis, there's a time delay from this woofer to this woofer. So that time delay at some point is going to be sufficient enough to where they're arriving out of phase. And when those waves arrive out of phase, they cancel each other out. And as you can see on the measurement, at 30 and 40 degrees off axis, it's gone. There's no output. There's just a huge hole in the response. And of course, this one measured, I think, 11 and a quarter inches acoustic centers from the middle of each driver to the middle of each driver. So you're starting to get out there in length a little bit, and that's just typical of almost any speaker that's laid on its side like that. Tricks you can do, you can move the woofers in on the tweeter. Like you see on the Elac here, they've kind of scalloped this in and they've scrunched them closer together. This one was 10 1/4 inches acoustic center to center, and it had a better coverage area than what the little Klipsch did, because these things are a little bit further apart. Again, looking at the Klipsch, if we look at the spectral decay looks pretty clean on this. I mean, overall, a lot of the measurements on this were better than every other Klipsch I've had in here. So, not too bad. Of course, the crossover parts are what you'd expect, and it definitely needs an upgrade in that department. I'm not sure if I want to just go in and just replicate what they've got, or just design something that is a little bit better. But it'll be very similar to what is in there, and it's going to be higher quality parts. I'll probably try to get that impedance up a little bit if I can, and I'll look at that top end and see if I can't lift that top end up a little bit. There's maybe a little throat cancellation going on or something here in the top end. I'm going to see if I can fix it and see if I can do a real budget level upgrade on this. I know this isn't a very expensive speaker, but I'll see what I can do on this that will not be expensive. And this one, I don't know if I mentioned it, the model number is the R25C. So if you want to look that up, the R25C, we'll see what we can do with that thing. And then, as this was no surprise really, Andrew does a really nice job on the design work on these things, and it measured great. It almost measured great in any way that you want to measure it. The on-axis response, as you can see, pretty flat. There's a little bit of a dipped area there, maybe 3 kHz, but it's not much. And then again, like all of these in this series, you see the tweeter drop off in the top end quite a bit. And there's a couple of things going on there that's causing that. One of the things is they come with the little metal grill, and that first measurement you see here, it's with this metal mesh on there. I've removed that, and as you can see from the next measurement, removing that little metal mesh on there, some of that top end came up a little bit. So a little bit smoother, and probably sounds a little bit better if you take this off. Another thing that I did, and I'd kind of suspected that some of that drop off at the top was a little bit of throat cancellation, because it's got a little bit of a waveguide effect going on. And I heard that some of that may be due to this edge that's on here causing a little bit of that, and so I put some tape around it, and sure enough, putting a little tape around it smoothed it out a little bit, and it took a little bit of that cancellation out of it, so came up a little bit. The impedance response on this, check this out. The impedance on it was pretty balanced, so top end, tweeter end, woofer end, very balanced. It only dipped to 8.7 ohms. So at 8.7 ohms, you can imagine this is a lot easier load on your receiver than one of the Klipsch models. It's not going to demand as much current. It's just going to be easier to drive. And I like the drivers on this. This material that they're using in this little woofer sounds really good, and it's a pretty good tweeter. I suspect that with some good quality parts in this series, this may be one of the better sounding models. I've never been a fan of the metal coaxial type or metal cone drivers, and I kind of suspect that a little bit better sound can be gotten out of these, but it's going to take a little parts upgrade to get there. If we look at the vertical off-axis, and of course remember this is a center channel, so vertical means we're moving up like this. It's the opposite of a speaker that would be standing up on its end. And the vertical off-axis looks great. It does, it looks great. You can put this below your TV or right above your TV. It's going to sound about the same either way. The horizontal off-axis. Now, when you first look at this, your first thought's going to be, kind of like the little Klipsch model. However, because the acoustic centers are a little bit closer together, I would say you've got about 20 degrees off-axis in either direction that you're still good. You're still in a good range where it's not too bad. As you get beyond 20, you're 30 and 40 degrees off-axis. That's where the time delay from one of these woofers to the other is going to cause the cancellation, and you can see it in the measurement. It's just big hole in the response, and I mean big wide cancellation effect. So keep that stuff in mind. If you're sitting on the couch and you can move to either seat on the couch in the middle of the room, you're probably fine. But if you're wanting to set off to one side or the other and watch the movie, it's not going to sound right out there. Last measurement, spectral decay. Spectral decay looked really clean on these things. So I see no issues with that at all. There's no stored energy in the drivers, no breakup or anything crazy going on. Nothing for me to have to fix. I'm kind of leaning towards just going in and replicating the crossover that's in here. With a few exceptions, I may take a small capacitor and bypass the resistor in line with the tweeter and try and lift that top end up a little bit. That's got a little bit going on there. I've done that with the little two-way 2.0 model, and I'll probably do that with this as well. But for the most part, rather than trying to redesign anything, I'm just going to copy what's there. I'm just going to replicate it with some good quality parts. The parts that are on here, it is your standard binding post cup. It's got some connectors and stuff on it that you really, you don't want those in the signal path. It's got a sandcast resistor or two on the circuit. There's, it looked like a polycap and a little air core inductor on the tweeter, so not too bad. And iron core inductors on the woofers. We're going to be able to open up that vocal region quite a bit with some better quality parts there. So hang in there. I for sure am going to offer a little upgrade kit for this model, but I'm not going to change what Andrew designed on this one. And I barely changed anything on the 2.0. I brought the tweeter level up a little bit because it was voiced down. I brought it up to balanced, and I added a little something to bring that top end up. So it didn't change that model very much. Not changing this one much at all, except just probably a little something on the top end. So that's coming. I'm going to try and work on that this coming week. It's just as soon as I can. I know I'm covered up with design work, and I've just got these things lined up, and I've been limited on as the time that I can spend on them because I'm overwhelmed with emails from you guys, and I appreciate the emails, and I love talking with the customer, especially when you guys show up and you tell me your story, how you guys started in audio and all that stuff. I mean, I really eat that up. But I can't answer 50 emails a day that are everyone telling me about how they get started in audio. Guys, shoot me your questions. Keep it brief. I'll try to keep my answers brief because, trust me, I'm answering 80 to 100 emails a day. Sometimes I come up here late at night. I'm up here answering 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I'm still answering emails. I'm trying to answer all of them. It's very tough. So when you shoot me those, keep your answers or your questions brief, please, and I'll try to do the same with my answer because I'm trying to get to everyone. So that's what I've been doing this week. That's all for this little episode. I've got some more I may shoot right behind this. I can't wait to get to the cables that we've been working on. Please, guys, hit the subscribe button and help us build up that little subscription base. I appreciate all the views, and that's it for this week, guys. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.